You're such an asshole.
Old Cappy here with Jarvis the Wonder Dog. You know it's a serious operation when we have a French Bulldog is what he is, who snores when he's awake. He makes noise, so maybe I can make him do that. Alright. Well, let's get to it. This is a long one. Hey Aaron, you did a video recently about my question on why the baby boomers tossed out every bit of wisdom all of civilization had accumulated the hard way and decided to run their own private social science experiments. That's a very good way of putting it. Here's another request. How much to react to this article? It's long, but I think you'll get a kick out of it. Just go nuts, whatever. Besides that, it'll be entertaining. I would like to contribute to laying down some warning commentary in YouTube land, like you have taught on the side, and it's hard to watch my students heading to the meat grinder. I warned them, but for all I know, I might be the only person they ever ran across that did. Yeah, and then when I try to warn my students, oh, he's just an evil guy. I mean, you teach, and then you're pushing those kids into the meat grinder. You're like, hey, jump off that cliff. Let me help you out. Yeah, that's the way to go. Because you do realize that it's not that they're dumb. They're not dumb. It's that they're arrogant and they think they know everything at like 23 or 20. It's like, yeah, you know what? You go ahead. I got a first worthless degree, journalism, for free. Found out the hard way it was worthless. Went back and got a STEM and law degree. Warning anyone thinking about law school, my STEM degree is the only reason my law degree isn't as worthless as law degree of about everyone else I know. I stayed in-state, worked all the time while in school to keep my debt down. I don't know if you kids knew about that work thing. After graduation, I managed to have work most of the time, through every spare quarter at it, and got lucky on a house sale. My point is, even with all that, it was hard to pay off. Many people I know, particularly lawyers, have not been so fortunate. About half aren't practicing law anymore because the field is flooded, and the other half hate what they do but don't feel they have a choice. They don't. Now, you put that much money and effort into a career, you got to make it work out in the end. I have friends who owe $100,000, $200,000. I know people so desperate they borrowed another $30,000 to get a tax LLM because they heard it might make them more hireable. Spoiler, no it didn't. I know someone who is a partner at a very prestigious law firm in the Twin Cities, and like last month she just announced, I finally paid off my student loans, my law degree, my law loans, and this gal is 52. It's like, holy shit. There's an episode of Star Trek Voyager. Boy, you are going all over the fucking place. Where the ship gets trapped in space pocket with a bunch of other ships. Voyager claws out barely, leaving most of the other ships still trapped in there. Sometimes I feel like the Voyager of student loan debt. Thanks to some experience and partly you, I am embracing minimalism, making a lot less and doing stuff like hitting the Appalachian Trail, scuba diving on the Pacific Coast, and taking a brief trip to Europe, driving around western U.S. doing some recon. My life is far from perfect, but not being in debt alone makes me fortunate, and I know it. I got comments from the chained and shackled all the time saying stuff like, you're so lucky, I wish I could go. They could, they chose not. They chose. Once I set up a day trip to explore bar hop in a nearby city, only one person could do that, could escape for one day, and she lived there. Yeah, they can only escape for one. Alright, so you want me to... Is this a YouTube video or is this a... This is an article. It's from thebaffler.com. Written by H.M. Miller. This looks to be a kitschy, cool, edgy website. Let's go read through this. Okay. On Halloween, I never read this. Didn't read it. This is all raw. On Halloween in 2008, about 6 weeks after Lehman Brothers collapsed, my mother called me from Michigan to tell me that my father had lost his job in the sales department of Visteon, an auto parts supplier for Ford. 2 months later, my mother lost her own job working for the city of Troy, a suburb about half an hour from Detroit. From there, our lives seemed to accelerate, the terrible events compounding fast enough to elude immediate understanding. By June, my parents, unable to find any work in the state where they spent their entire lives, moved to New York, going from one leftist shithole to another, where my sister and I were both in school. A month later, the mortgage on my childhood home went into default for lack of payment. After several months of unemployment... How? By that... If it was your childhood home, shouldn't they have paid that mortgage way down by that point? Or did they take the money out on a home equity line so they could afford a brand new Dodge diesel truck? Or European trips? Or maybe your education? After several months of unemployment, my mother got a job in New York City fundraising for a children's choir. That's not a job, that's charity. In the summer of 2010, I completed school at New York University where I received a BA and an MA in English literature with more than $100,000 of debt for which my father was a co-signer. So you're the reason the house, your childhood home went into default. Yeah, you're going to pay back that $100,000 with a degree. Here's to my client. Here's the problem. I can't even get upset about this anymore because these people are in a delusional world where math and reason just don't exist. It just doesn't exist. I was listening to a podcast by the San Francisco Review of Books, and they had Milo Yiannopoulos on. And he was talking about how these people are mental. It's not political. It's not ideological. They're mental. These are mentally impaired adult children. An MA in English literature. He got a degree in reading books, and now his dad is $100,000 in debt. By this time, my father was still unemployed, and my mother had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. That's unfortunate. She continued working through her employment, though her employment was clearly perturbed that she'd have to take off every Friday for chemotherapy. How can that be? New York City's fundraising for children. Those are the caring leftist liberals, right? To compensate for the lost time on Monday, she rode early buses into the city from the Bronx, where after months of harrowing uncertainty, my parents had settled. She wanted to be in the office first thing. On January 2011, Chase Bank took full possession of the house in Michigan. Well, because your degree crippled your father. Okay, let's be very clear about that. Parents. Were severed by an email my father received from the realtor who had tried and failed to short sell the property, telling him it's safe to turn off the utilities. In May, I got a freelance contract with a newspaper that within a year would hire me full-time, paying me after taxes roughly $900 every 2 weeks. In September 2011, my parents were approved for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, so they did not pay back fully what they owed. You guys, as a family, stole money from other people, not consciously, not maliciously, I understand that, and I understand it's recession, but I'm sorry, 7 years feast, 7 years famine, that's logic and math. In October, due to paperwork snafu, the car was repossessed in the middle of the night by creditors. Meanwhile, the payments for my debt, which had been borrowed from a variety of federal and private lenders, most prominently Citibank, totaled $1,100 a month. For a completely worthless degree. Look, you're not every 2 weeks, even, and you're in New York. Were you living in New York? Netting, I mean, you got to pay taxes and everything. Your loans are eating up pretty much all your disposable income. Does that not tell you it's I forgot. I'm talking to people who lack sanity. Now 30 years old, I've been incapacitated by debt for a decade. The delicate balancing act my family and I perform in order to make a payment each month has become the organizing principle of our lives. To this end, I am just one of about 44 million borrowers in the United States who owe roughly a total $1.4 trillion in student loan debt. This number is almost incomprehensibly high, and yet it continues to increase with no sign of stopping. At any point in time, you could go back to school for a real degree, start making some serious progress on that debt. You could, but you're not going to because you're lazy, and it's your dream to be a reader of books. You know what? I could go to the library and become an expert in English literature for free. I don't even have to go to the library. You just download them on headphones and you listen while you go run and work out, or maybe do manual labor. Work a real man's job. This number, reform legislation that might help families parasite further off the taxpayer. Oh, I'm sorry, that's true. In financial hardships has failed in Congress. See, we like our money back. I have to work extra time. I have to sacrifice part of my finite life to pay the taxes to loan it to you. Do you understand that much? That's the other side of this coin. Don't give me your sob story about you guys being idiots because you can't do math and you were dumb as fuck to go major in not only in English literature, but then get a master's in English literature. Now I'm supposed to bail you out because you're lazy? Story of every millennial liberal arts major. And I wish I could apply words to that, but that's about as intelligent as it is. Other people's money. Not my fault. It's incomprehensibly high to you because you don't know how many zeros are in a trillion. That's why. Which would undo changes made to the bankruptcy code in early 2000 stalled in committee. Yeah, because you need to pay us back. That's not your money. That's other people's lives. Despite all evidence that student loan debt is a national crisis, the majority of U.S. government, the only party with power to resolve problems, refuse to acknowledge its severity. No, you have failed to acknowledge your parasitism. Understand bad things happen. Recession was horrible. You're a moron. You made a mistake. You're not owing up to it. Now you want us to bail you out. That's how simple this is. Now, I'm like a fifth through this. Here's the problem I face with the client. What am I going to listen to more? What more whining and complaining about how he was hopeless, when it basically boils down to a couple simple mistakes. He majored in stupid crap. He doubled down and paid way too much for his degree. His dad co-signed a loan. I want to know where all the equity was. I want to know if it's his childhood home and he's 20 years old when he went to college. Wouldn't his parents have paid down the majority of that house? I guarantee they took money out of the house, maybe to pay for this kid's degree. No, wait, no, he co-signed the loan, so it's all right, and it's not dismissible in bankruptcy. I want to know where that money went. Let's do a financial audit of the family. My debt was the result in equal measure of a chain of rotten luck and a system that is an abject failure by design. No, you majored in stupid shit. If you were an engineer, you wouldn't have this problem. My parents never lived extravagantly. In the first years of their marriage, my father drove cab. When they had children, my father started a career in the auto industry. We became firmly middle class, never wanting for anything, even taking vacations once a year to places like Myrtle Beach or Miami. Still, there was usually just enough money to cover the bills, car leases. Leases! Leases! You didn't pay cash? Mortgage, groceries. My sister and I both attended public school. How much things cost was a constant discussion. Freshman year in high school, when I lost my yearbook, which cost $40, my mother very nearly wept. If that's how tight it was, why did your parents have 2 kids they couldn't afford? If it was that tight. Freshman year in high school, college, which cost roughly $50,000 a year, was the only time that money did not seem to matter. You could have gone to community college. What, $50,000 a year? What college were you going to? Holy shit. We'll find a way to pay for it, my parents said repeatedly. If we couldn't pay for it immediately, there was always a bank somewhere willing to give us a loan. With little devil horns. This was true even after my parents had both lost their jobs amidst a global financial meltdown. Like many well-meaning but misguided baby boomers, neither of my parents received an elite education, but nevertheless believed that an expensive school was not a materialistic waste of money. Well, there was a book called Worthless written by a brilliant man called Aaron Clary at one time that for $12.95 would have saved you guys a world of pain. But why listen to that guy? Because he was a racist, homophobic, sexist, white guy, Republican, libertarian, and he didn't tell you what you wanted to hear at the time. Now let's have Aaron bail us out. They continued to put faith in this falsehood even after a previously unimaginable financial loss, and so we continued spending money that we didn't have, money that banks kept giving to us. I spent a great deal of time in the last decade shifting the blame for my debt. Whose fault was it? Yes, whose fault was it? My devoted parents were encouraging me to attend school they couldn't afford. The banks, which should have never lent money to people who couldn't clearly pay it back in the first place, continually explaining the hope of families like mine and to exploit us further. Once that hope disappeared, was it my fault for not having the foresight to realize it was a mistake to spend roughly $200,000? Oh, your dad only co-signed a loan for $100,000. You spent $200,000. You spent $200,000 on how to read books. Oh my God. I wonder who's at fault. In order to get my degree, I kept a journal about reading Virginia Woolf. Perhaps simple passage which assuredly blew my mind at the time. We are interested in facts because we are interested in myth. We're interested in myth insofar as myth construct facts. How about math? Math ever? Logic? Let me guess how many critical thinking classes you took. The problem, I think, runs deeper than blame. The foundational myth of an entire generation of Americans that was false promise that education was priceless, that its value was above or beyond its cost. College was not a right or a privilege, but inevitability on the way to a meaningful adulthood. What an irony that decisions I made about college when I was 17 have derailed such a goal. Look, dude, 17 years, let's just admit it. You're lazy, didn't want to work, okay? That's what it boils down to. Every 17-year-old's a lazy fuck who doesn't want to work. And you say, I'm going to go major in English because I like children, I like reading. Oh, you're so smart. Calculus? Ew, that's for nerds. Letter to an unknown lender. After the dust settled on the collapse of the economy on my family's lives, we found ourselves in an impossible situation. We owed more each month than we could collectively pay, and so we wrote letters to Citibank's mysterious P.O. box in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, begging for help. Letters that I doubt ever met a human being. We grew to accept Citibank was a detestable Moloch that we feared and hated, but were made to worship. The letters began to comprise a diary for my father in particular, a way to communicate a private anguish that he mostly bottled up as if he were sorting it for later. In one letter addressed Dear City, he pledged for a longer-term plan for lower monthly payments. You see, you make it seem like Citibank's the bad guy here. The Citibank is just a broker. It took other people's money, not your money, other people's time, other people's lives, and they gave it to you on agreeable terms. And you signed on it, and now you've taken these people's lives in the form of their money, their time, and now you're like, well, I don't want to pay it back. And it's the evil Citibank. Can you get past the Citibank and find out where those dollars originated from? Because they got to pay those guys. When the depositors deposit money, they got to pay the depositors because they lent money to Citibank. They got to pay them principal and interest. And they got to go after deadbeats like you. I don't know what they're doing. Now, they were dumb as hell to lend you money for an English degree. And I've always said, 15 years ago, different degrees should have different interest rates that lenders lend to. Like if you're a chemical engineering major, 1%, and we're happy to have you. English lit, no, we're not even lending to you, you moron. But we bailed out the banks, yes, and I hate the banks just as much as I hate you people. You're all parasites, and that's not an opinion, that's what you are. No protection from family in bankruptcy for private student loans. We're not asking in the end for relief or forgiveness, but merely to pay them an amount we could still barely afford. This is an appeal to the city asking you to work with us on this loan, he wrote, to no one at all. It's kind of like contacting Google, Finally, in the beginning of 2012, my father started writing to the office of Congressman Joseph Crowley, who represented the district in the Bronx where my payments were located. In one of those letters, he described watching Too Big to Fail, an HBO film on the financial crisis, which had come out several months earlier. My parents lost every asset they had, but they still subscribed to HBO, which became more than TV for them, a symbolic relief for their former class status. Why are you subscribing to Give it a cable. I know you say you're middle class, but it sounds like you barely were, but then you're going on these trips and we're going to scrimp by, and when you lost the $40, this is like lower middle income. Your parents just want to keep up the appearances of a middle class lifestyle. I've never had cable, never. The recession was over officially anyway. That was Obama, you voted for him. He really came to bat for you guys, didn't he? People who had not suffered its agonies were already profiting from its memory. Recession films often took place in the gleaming offices of hedge funds and investment banks, which I Zachary Quinto in 2011's Margin Call, for instance, plays a rocket scientist turned risk analyst with a heart of gold, a do-gooder who discovers that his employer has leveraged itself to the edge of bankruptcy. The star of these films depicted figures who experienced little to no repercussions for the roles in leading the country into recession, who abused the misfortune of people like my parents. Yeah, it's disgusting. I hate bankers probably even more than I hate you guys. I know that's hard to imagine. Unmentionables who owed more on their houses than what they had paid for them, and of course, who were rarely visited in any of these films. My father described himself as, and my mother to Crowley as, the poster children for the entire financial event, which meant Americans who seem to have done everything right on paper, but in doing so contributed to their own downfall. That is true. That is true. This is called ignorance. This is what happens when your dad didn't know any degree is a good degree. Remember that baby boomer stuff? Well, I'll shine away my entire life. Here you go, bakers. Oh my God, what happened? My son don't make no money. He makes $900 every 2 weeks. Don't paper boys, delivery boys make more? By the time he wrote it, my father was working again, but it had taken him 2 years to find another job for much less money. After his run of financial calamity, he knew better than to believe anything good would last. We are in our 60s, and I figured we would get to our mid-70s, life would become difficult again, he wrote. Crowley's office wrote back, it was the first time in about 2 years that a person had responded to our correspondence with encouragement or something like that. Yeah, I'm sure politicians just took care of it like that. Kevin Casey, who worked for Crowley in Washington, helped arrange a conference call with government liaisons from Citigroup to discuss a different payment plan. The current month, that's good. This is good. The current monthly payments to Citi were for more than $800 a month. What's this? $800 a month, and you got 3 adults, and you guys can't scratch together more than $800 a month as a group? Talked to him and let us paying the loan over a longer period of time at a rate of $400 a month. 3 people, 3 full-grown adults can't muster up $400 at $800 a month. These terms are reasonable enough, but the response to this request was like an automated message brought to life. We are precluded from a regulatory perspective of being able to do what you are asking, each of the representatives said. What made these exchanges more ridiculous was the fact that Citibank was in the process of retreating from the student loan market by selling off my debt to Discover Financial, who would give us the same response. We were nothing to these companies but a number in a database, and they fully controlled our fates. Yes! Yes! You danced with the devil. You made a contract with the devil, and now you're his bitch. I don't know where, well, tons of borrowing money, and the baby boomers are spoiled, and nothing's too good for our children. That's where you guys got this expectation that life was just going to be free everything, and you could actually think about how spoiled you have to be to think that you are going to have a career and a life and be a self-supporting adult, let alone a father who could support children with a master's in English literature. How did you get to that? I mean, even with all the propaganda, how at 17 did you not have the logic? Okay, I'm going to bang my head against the wall. The Unsweetened Release, subtitle. I used to wonder if people who worked for these lenders had families of their own and if they would ever find themselves bankrupt, wondering where they were going to live. Most of all, I wonder what they would do if their own children had to take out loans to pay for college. After 10 years of living with the fallout of my own decisions about my education, all right, good, you're owning up to it. I've come to think of my debt like an alcoholic relative from which I am estranged, but who shows up to ruin happy occasions. But when I first got out of school, and the reality of how much money I owed finally struck me, the debt was more of a constant and explicit preoccupation, a matter of life and death. Yes, $200,000, when you have no capacity to earn the money because you learn no tangible skills in exchange for that $200,000, you are fucked, my fine friend. You're fucked. You are, say it with me, you are fucked. Fucked. At any point in time, if you really want to kick some ass, you go get your ass at a programming boot camp. You go get your ass in IT and STEM. You learn some amazing languages, programming languages. And I learned Spanish, and I learned Baha'i and Chinese. And Baha'i is a religion, now that I think about it. No. You learn Python, R, SQL. You start making some serious freaking cash. That'd be hard now, wouldn't it? Let me ask you, what would have been harder? Majoring in engineering the first time around, going to a community college, or this fucking shit that you're going through now? This is why it's always harder to major in the liberal arts. It's because lazy people work twice as hard. First when you do it the wrong time, then you gotta go back and do it all over again. And that's what a liberal arts do. You did it wrong the first time, now you gotta go back and major in engineering or STEM or programming or accounting or the trades or something like that. It's unavoidable. You just took an incredibly painful path and fucked up your family's finances along the way. Oh, and you still want to be bailed out by the taxpayer. You still want to steal money from the taxpayer. I studied English because I wanted to be a writer. Hey, have you seen all my books that I wrote without spending one frickin' lick in an English class so that I wasn't forced to? I never had an expectation of becoming rich. I didn't care about money. My MA fed an intellectual curiosity that eventually led me to newspapers. I don't regret that my translation of The Dream of the Rude from Old English to contemporary vernacular was not terribly marketable even applicable skill. I understand now the extent to which I was among the most overeducated group of young adults in human history. All right, there's hope. Still following completion of this degree, I enrolled in night school because of the cost of a French class at New York's Cooper Union. An action that deferred my having to start paying off the debt was cheaper than making the monthly payments I owe. Why not get a job? Why not go work somewhere, anywhere, make money, live at home? I lived in basements. I still live in a basement, technically. I sacrificed. I did without. Dude, if you gave me $200,000 when I was 18, I'd be set. I'd be set. You flushed it down the toilet. Once I could no longer delay and the payments began, a question echoed through my head from the moment the day began. Should I work? And often jolted me awake at night. Oh, not work. Oh, anything but. I would like the number on my paycheck and obsessively subtract my rent, the cost of a carton of eggs, a can of beans, my sustenance. Why are you renting? You need to go back home and live with your parents. You all need to congregate together as a family, cut your expenses down, and beat the shit out of this dragon. I'm the friendliest motherfucker you've ever heard right now, because I'm telling you the truth. Or would you like to hear more lies from your congressmen and Citibank and teachers and professors and all that? The question was, what will you do when the money from the paycheck is gone? You're going to suffer. I never realized that in answer to this question, at my lowest points, I began fantasizing about dying, not because I was suicidal, but because death would have meant relief from not having to come up with an answer. My life, I felt, had been assigned a monetary value. I knew what I was worth, and I couldn't afford it. So all the better to cash out early. The debt was mind-controlling. How would I eat or pay my rent without defaulting was a constant refrain. Why are you... Why aren't you back? Aaron, they're not normal people. Fortunately, they're becoming the normal people. And you're not a great writer, by the way. You're okay. You're all right, but you're not great. The debt was meant to... I had long since abandoned any hope for a future in which I had a meaningful line of credit or disposable income. Why do you need a line of credit? Well, that's right. Your whole family's been living on debt. That's how about you just pay cash? I pay cash. Or disposable income, or simply owned something, but also mind-numbingly banal. I spent a great deal of time filling out paperwork over and over again with my personal information, waiting to hold for extended periods in order to speak of a robotic voice rejecting my request. It didn't matter how much money you think you guys would have made instead of trying to like constantly plead for a refi or to be forgiven if you just worked extra jobs. If everyone in the family worked 2 jobs, I know this is going to suck, and you all lived at home, you just all decided we're working 2 jobs, would that have made more? Would you have been in a better financial situation? The lengths people will go to avoid work. Now I understand there was a recession going on, but the lengths people will go to avoid work. It didn't matter what the request was, who was asking, I was always rejected. And it felt so good to think about dying in the way that it felt good to take a long nap more not to be conscious for a while. These thoughts culminated in November of 2010 when I met with my father one afternoon at a diner in Brooklyn. What are you eating at a diner for? To retrieve more paperwork. My hope of some forgiving demise had ultimately resulted in my being viciously sick for about 10 days with what turned out to be strep throat. I refused to go to the doctor in the hope that my condition might worsen into a more serious infection than that. Even if it didn't kill me, it might force someone to at last lavish me with pity. That's the problem. You're looking to other people to solve your problems. What was the quote? No one is coming to save you. I forgot who it was. It was an author, maybe a philosopher. No one is coming to save you. And now you got a choice. You want to die, okay? Or you man up. I'm saying man up because life, you got nothing else but life to look forward to. What else are you going to do? Someone take pity on me. I coughed up not a significant portion of yellowish fluid before my father and I entered the restaurant. I sat at the table. I found the forms he handed me. I started a conversation. Theoretically, if I were to say kill myself, what would happen to the debt? I would have to pay it myself. Yeah, because he co-signed. But we didn't bother reading about that in English literature class, right? Legal forms and contracts. My father said in the same tone he would use a few minutes later to order eggs. He paused and then offered me a melancholy smile, which I sensed had caused him a great strain. Listen, it's just debt, he said. No one is dying from this. Truthfully, I'll tell you this. You guys cannot pay the debt and die. Like, you just live your regular life. Now, they might garnish it later, but there's no reason to kill yourself. None. That's just stupid. My father had suffered in the previous 2 years. In a matter of months, he had lost everything he had worked for most of his adult life to achieve his first career, then his home, then his dignity. He had become a 60-year-old man who had quite reluctantly shaved his graying 40-year-old mustache in order to look younger, shuffling between failed job interviews where he was often told he had too much experience. Oh, okay, I'll side with you guys on that one. I hate HR. Oh, I hate fucking employers like that. He was ultimately forced out of the life he'd known, dragging with him like some 21st century Peugeot, a U-Haul trailer crammed with family possessions, including, at the instance of my mother, large plastic tubs from my childhood action figures. Through the misery my father had reacted with, I suddenly realized with stoicism, there you go, but which I had long mistaken for indifference. This misunderstanding was due in part to my mother, whom my father mercifully hadn't lost, and who had suffered perhaps most of all. Not that it was a competition, but if it were, I think she would have taken some small amount of satisfaction in winning it. The loss of a home and the finances felt at least like a worthy opponent for cancer, and yet here was my father telling me that none of this was the end of the world. He's right. I felt a flood of sympathy for him. I was ashamed of my selfishness. Good. The lump in my throat began to feel less infectious than lacrimal. Okay, I said to him, and that was that. When I got home, I scheduled an appointment with the doctor. Yeah, he doesn't need to lose his son. Doesn't need to lose his son. That would be horrible. Social finance disorder. Oh, are we creating a new disorder? Are we creating a new mental illness that just explains laziness and incompetence? Much of my dilemma about being in debt came down to numbers that I could only comprehend in the abstract. $38,840 at 2.25% interest, and I noticed that in May the interest would increase to 2.5%. A $20,000 loan at 7.5 interest. Of course, at 3 years. More than what I started out with, I memorized, or more often didn't, seemingly crucial details about my debt that turned out to be comically meaningless. A low-interest loan from Perkins was serviced by a company called ACH, which had rebranded Conduent Education and sent out notices that the new logo may soon be Conduent. Okay, so they sold them. Selling, promise for giving years instead. The lawsuit seemed bathed in significance, but of course resulted in nothing at all. You're looking again for other people to solve your problems. You're looking for a bailout, aren't you? No one is coming to save you. Company's solutions for your success. The announcements flooded my inbox, important information, but then altered at my fate. Sometimes the monthly payments will go up, sometimes the salary will go up, sometimes I may check out to a different company. The only stable thing on money never seemed to go on. And the cash. I don't want to read this article. I'm going to skip ahead. This was the summer of 2017. When I was 70, he had lost another job. The prediction he made to Crowley about life getting difficult again became a little bit earlier than I expected. That I finally removed him as co-signer, refinanced my loans with one of the few companies that provide such a service. SoFi. My wife, who agreed to marry me last fall, would help with the payments when she could. Oh, there's your bailout. Sharing the burden of my debt with my spouse and still my parents was a small, depressing victory. Victory? Your wife is bailing you out? Perhaps unique to members of my generation, one that must have carried similar significance that purchasing a home and having a mortgage had to. My parents' SoFi has not made my situation much more tenable necessarily. The main difference is that I now write one check instead of several. Good, you consolidated, and I had an end date for when the debt, including the financial interest, about $182,000, will be paid off. So you paid twice in interest, huh? Oh. 2032, when I'll be 44, a number that feels only slightly less theoretical to me than 30 did when I was 17. What I have to pay each month is still, for the most part, more than I am able to afford. You could get a second job! And it's kept me in this state of perpetual childishness. I'd say I rely on the help of people I love, and live by each paycheck. I still harbor anxiety about the bad things that could befall me should the paycheck disappear. What if your wife divorces you? Oh, the sky was so rosy when parents lied to you, but you weren't smart like me, the Irish Jew. Clary had paid off his bills every month. So the so-called important information I received was changed so far, which Bill said as a modern finance company, its name shorthand. Silicon Valley Center office, blah, blah, blah. The aim is to empower our members. Yeah, you lefties believe in words like empowerment, right? Empowerment. Its CEO, Mike Carnegie, who employees allege had engaged in serial workplace sexual harassment, ran the office according to New York Times headline like a frat house. The allegations, according to the report of the Times, include Carnegie exchanging explicit text messages with employees, bragging about the size of his genitalia, and the company's chief financial officer offering both a female employee to lose their weight. What does this have to do with you paying off loans? In January, SoFi hired Anthony Noto, former of Twitter. Carnegie's replacement. SoFi has always received criticism for elitism, for lending only to wealthy, high-earning borrowers. To which, are you complaining about the moral character of the employees of the company you owe money to? I owe Jimmy the Hitman $40. Jimmy's a hitman. Doesn't matter. I don't care who Jimmy kills. I owe him $40. Now, of course, he may hit me if I don't pay him back the $40, but Jimmy's private life is none of my concern. I will reiterate that I'm a 30-year-old married man. Oh, I don't know about man. With more than $100,000 of debt, who makes less than each year than what he owes. Buying a pair of pants is a major financial decision for me. You could work a second job. I do not. Dude, unemployment is 3.8%. Don't tell me you can't find another job. I do not think myself eligible in any sense of the word, nor do I find my debt to be amusing merely on a conversational level. Still, I feel as if in 10 years the debt hadn't changed, but the world had, or at least the world's view of it. Yeah, the economy has actually improved quite a lot. I'll grant you this, under Obama, it slowly, painfully improved. And then more recently it's gotten hot. I'm worried about, here's something, I know you don't believe in 7 years famine. It might be a recession. Okay, just telling you the economy might go down. 21st, to my client, I'm sorry, I can't read this drivel because it's just pages and pages. And here's another. So would SoFi be this friend if I lost my job and I missed a monthly payment? Let's say I was morbidly intrigued. The day after Valentine's Day, I went to a Mexican restaurant in the financial district for a SoFi community dinner. This was not a singles event, but simply a free meal. Good. There had been another of these dinners nearby my apartments a week before, but it had, to my surprise, quickly sold out. The Mexican restaurant was packed with an after-work crowd in business attire, and SoFi had rented out the back room where a dozen people had gathered, all wearing name tags discussing financial woes. Sid, a software developer from Queens who had racked up credit card debt after college. Other people's money. When you hear debt, that's other people's lives you stole, if you don't intend to pay it back. If you intend to pay it back, it's a loan. If you don't intend to pay it back, you're looking for a ballot, that's called theft. That's called stealing. You could almost say that's murder because you're lessening their lives. Do you think these people want to go to work to bail you out? When there's a break in the conversation, someone can just say, so debt, huh? And things will get going again, he said. If we walked outside of this room, he continued, gesturing to the suits at the bar, everyone out there would have debt too. It's just more out in the open for us. Well, those people also have jobs, and you're right, they do have debt, and they're just faking it. Despite the name tags, the dinner turned up to resemble something more like an AA meeting, an earnest session of group therapy. Everyone had their story about the problems caused by their student loans and how they were trying one day at a time to improve things, and no story was exceptional, including my own. Ian, an employee from he wrote it here, I guess I could say Google, who had recently successfully paid off his debt from a Columbia MBA program, became something like my sponsor for the evening. He said he had a few bone-dry years where he lived on instant noodles. I did that. Well, it was bagels and ham sandwiches. I told him I had gone a long way to go. At least you're doing something about it, he said sincerely. Good man. We sat down to dinner. Across from me was Mira, a defense attorney from Brooklyn, with her law degree. Oh my God, I got a law degree. I want to go help social justice, and I want to fight the evil patriarchy. Who attended law school at Stanford. All right, that's a reputable school. Her payments were around $2,300 a month, more than double my own. When I asked her why she came to this event, she glanced at me as if the answer should have been obvious. She went to law school at Stanford, and her payments are $2,300 a month. The table, myself included, looked on her with an odd reverence. She wore a business suit and had her hair pulled back, but I saw something like the sage and weathered biker of a group holding her 20-year chip, walking in her wisdom about accepting the things you cannot change. After the food was served, a waiter came by with a stack of to-go boxes which sat in the edge of the table untouched for a while as everyone cautiously eyed them. The group was reluctant at first, but then Ian said the chicken was actually pretty good as he scooped it into one of the boxes. Mira shrugged, took a fork, and added, "This is a little tacky, but I hate to waste free food." So do I! I got friends, they'll eat half their meal, and then I'm done with that. I'm like, whoa, to-go bag. Now, keep in mind, my fine young man, by the time you're done paying off your student loans, you'll still have I don't have a mortgage. I have a house, ain't got no mortgage, ain't got no debt. Why? Because I ate ramen noodles. I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs at a time. I had a side hustle, I worked hard, and I didn't expect people to bail me out. No one was coming to save me. Maybe the next generation would do better, but I feel like we're broken. Yep, you are. No number of degrees or professional successes could put us back together again. For now, though, we knew where our next meal was coming from. Okay, to my client, this is so common. And I don't have any pity for these people because they made all the mistakes. I know that millennials were brainwashed. I know baby boomers were horrible parents. But how do you figure spending $200,000 on a master's in English literature is a wise idea. And then the perpetual hardcore wiring of avoiding work and just knuckling down, saying we got to bite the bullet. I mean, going and taking other classes so you don't have to pay your loans? I have no sympathy for these people. None. None. I worked hard, I sacrificed, I bust my ass off, now I gotta bail out parasites like this. I admit, yes, it's horrible the mother had cancer, and yes, the financial recession was horrible on all of us, but this all started when someone decided they were gonna major in a worthless subject and pay, $50,000 a year, 10 years ago? That's gotta be, what was it, Middlebury? What worthless ass rape of a school did this guy go to? Stupid people do stupid things, and they pay the costs and consequences. And I don't care anymore, because how long have I been trying to warn? How long have I been sirening the bells, warning people about the impending attack happening on Pearl Harbor from the Japan? How long have I been doing this? And then I'm called racist or mean. I don't have anything to do with racism. I'm giving the ists and the isms, and you're mean and da. I enjoy watching people like this suffer. Not necessarily as parents. His parents really didn't deserve it. They tried everything they could. But when I try and tell the hard truths, and everyone wants to go and line up and pay for lies coming out of Obama's mouth, the Democrats' mouth, Oprah's mouth, the media's mouth, corporate America's mouth, colleges' mouths, they want to believe in these lies. Well, this is the cost and consequences. This is what happens. So I don't... He's not the only one. There's millions of people like him. And I don't care. I just don't care. I can't care anymore. I did more than the average person did long ago. Long ago. Two times. Two multi-trillion dollars. Well, single trillion together, multi-trillion. Didn't the old captain try and warn America about another bubble called the housing bubble? If you want to read my book, Behind the Housing Crash, published the day Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, that meant I was writing it the 8 months before, knowing what was going to happen. And I was so good. I had to update my charts. I was like, man, I'm good. I mean, my predictions were... And what did I... I got reprimanded, lectured, borderline fired because I wasn't approving loans. Because I was trying to warn bankers, like, hey, this is not going to come through. You don't know how it works. Suffer. Die. F off and die. Be in pain, ruin your lives, I don't care. I sleep soundly at night because I tried to stop it. And I would have some pity for most of these people if you weren't a bunch of fucking arrogant dickheads to me, telling me I was wrong, I'm mean, whatever the excuses were, because I hurt your vaginal feelings. And you had to go and attack me on a personal level, say just want to work for this person, all of it, go. Now I'm happy you're suffering. Now I'm happy. So I told you guys so. Nobody likes listening to the asshole, but by God, imagine if the United States, we didn't have two financial crises, one the housing bubble, that we would have saved $1 trillion. What, are you coming back up, dog? Yeah, I know, millennials are stupid. Aren't graduate students in the liberal arts dumb as hell? I know, you're smarter than them. And you got an IQ of like, what? What do dogs have an IQ of? 60 maybe? Maybe? No. Just don't care. We could have, when you guys are ready to listen to truth, then we can start having some progress. And we can avoid crisis like this. We could all be doing a lot better. Less poverty, less debt, happier, less psychological tolls and taxation, better mental health. Oh no, but you guys wanted your dick stroked up and early. Well, now the hangover's here, assholes. I'm laughing at you motherfuckers. So, I don't care. I mean, what do you want me to say? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go have a cigar. I'm going to walk this dog. Want to pick up chicks? We'll get you a nice little French bulldog girl, huh? A little paint her claws red. Get you laid? I'm going to walk this dog. I'm going to have a cigar. Might go for a motorcycle ride around the Black Hills. I'm just going to enjoy life. Because I bit the bullet. I accept the truth up front. I didn't have delusions. I didn't believe baby boomer bullshit. The rest of you guys could just fuck off. And don't get mad at me. I tried to help you. I tried to warn you. So you guys have fun. You guys have fun paying off those debts well into your 40s. And then, once you're out of that mess, the question is, are you going to learn and make sure the remaining half of your life isn't pissed away like the first half? Or are you going to double down? All right, see you guys later. Toodles.